cross-check. Always takes a little bit. Okay, here we are. So we're definitely live on LinkedIn. That's great. So, and I guess we should be live on. No, we are live on YouTube. We should be live on LinkedIn as well, I think. So, yeah, no, looks good. Just let me quickly share the link to the live stream to the community when I find the link. Okay, it might be in a different place. Okay, I will do this on the way, but I would say since we are live, so first of all, everyone, welcome. Um, So again, like everyone who was already trying to get into the Riverside link, Riverside still has to fix an issue. So unfortunately, this is not working, but every other live channel is working. And of course, like we will have the video later on. So if you're watching this later and see it as a recording, so it's still the same kind of quality that we have. So first of all, I have to say welcome. So I so we're covering today two things which I really like. So first of all, we're covering data products, and we're covering data products in a way that I really like. So really like based on the kind of additional value that it can give to a business team, and also like all this based on, let's say, data and analytics insights, and really like driving growth and product teams to make, let's say, better customer experience. And I have two persons with me, and so two people with me who do this in practice. So they just not talk about it, but they actually do it, which is definitely, I think, the best combination. So maybe we can start. Can you both quickly introduce yourself, and then we can, I think, immediately dive into the topic.
Yeah, sure. So super happy and super glad to be live with you first. That's really nice.
Yeah,
So yeah, quickly to introduce myself. So I'm Tanguy. I'm working at Dashlane. So Dashlane is a B2B SaaS business, but also B2C. So it's super exciting in terms of product-led growth, analytics, and growth overall opportunities and kind of projects we can do. And yeah, I've been working there for nearly 4 years now with Manu.
yeah,
Yeah, so
So
Emmanuel, I'm a product data analyst at Dashlane as well, and I've been working at Dashlane for 2.5 years, yeah, around that. And yeah, we've been working a lot with Tanguy on collaborative projects, and yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
That's, I mean,
and I think
you,
maybe
yeah. So sorry, no, go ahead.
no, I was saying if you want, we can also like I just shared my screen. Hopefully you can see it now. But a
Yes.
couple of words that could be helpful also for the community. Maybe we wanted to say a couple of things on the high level context on how we work, how do we think about data products, how do we think about growth teams, because basically we think that it's kind of very specific and it's also specific to the type of business you are working for.
Yeah.
So Dashlane is a SaaS business. So today's session is going to be focused on how do we build artifacts to drive growth for SaaS businesses. If you are working for a marketplace, I think the main principles and guidance are they are similar. It's the same mindset. However, the types of artifacts you will build for your teams and the thought process will be there will be some variant for it. So I think this is a good thing to call out first for all the people joining us. Um, but yeah, and also Dashlane, it's also a mature business. So when we are going to talk about growth, is more for like a business that has already a data team with
Right.
multiple people, and so we have already like I don't know 15 people in the data team spread across business analysis, data science, product analytics, and data engineering. And our data stack is also a little bit mature as well. So that means that we can do a lot of things and that we have also constraints on a specific scale that also influence the way we work. So that was just, I don't know if you want to deep dive on specific things on that, but I think that's also good context to have before we go into the data product for growth teams topic.
No, I think the context is definitely important for everyone to know. I might ask you at the end to say, okay, let's say I'm not as far as you already are on this journey. So, what do you think? What would be valid for them? But I think, like based on the examples that you will show, it will already be clear that there might be some ideas that people can already pick and see if they can implement it on their side, even when they are not, let's say, as mature as you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Manu, if you want to say a couple of words maybe on
Yeah.
Dashlane, because that's also important context for the audience.
Yeah, so basically, Dashlane is a SaaS company, already Series D,
Yeah.
yeah, with a lot of investments. And yeah, basically, we have a few core features, so both for B2B and B2C, such as like generating passwords, dark web monitoring and alerts, password sharing, autofill. So yeah, these are basically the main features. And so yeah, we have a pretty big product and engineering department with more than 150 people. So we are split within like domains for different areas of the business. For instance, activation, growth, expansion, and we have teams within these domains that are focused, for instance, on onboarding or on sharing, for instance, that are specific features. So yeah, there is definitely um, an organization system that sometimes change, but yeah, there is a fixed structure, let's say. And yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe just to continue on what do we mean by data products? Basically, I think there are two ways we can bring value as analysts. The first one that is pretty simple is like being kind of reactive and answering stakeholders' requests by making analysis and trying to simply understand their needs. And what we mean by data products is working with an entrepreneurial mindset and really understanding like kind of user problems, and users are stakeholders for us. And so understanding their problems, what could move the business forward, and considering not just an analysis or a data pool, but a set of artifacts, a set of analysis. And when we think about a dashboard, we think about a product basically with kind of features, filters, how to use it, what is the context, and that's really a shift of mindset. And we don't hesitate to challenge our stakeholders. So that's a bit how
Yeah.
we were used to work. Yeah.
Two questions here, because like at least like whenever I talk with people about, let's say, what's the difference between I create a dashboard and I create a data product, as you already said, like a dashboard can be a data product, but I mean, let's say, where's the difference? So how do you usually approach that? So how do you get started when, let's say, what ends up at some point to be a data product? So what is the starting point? And so like, what would you say, what are the essential things that you do different compared to, okay, look, I get a Jira ticket, I have some idea what to do, and then I build a dashboard and send someone the link.
Yeah, I think that all comes. It's all about building a strong relationships with the stakeholders, and really ask them the right questions. So
Mhm.
I think the basic mistake you can make is just to like receive a bunch of requests and basically take the request and try to answer everything. And the problem is basically when you are like kind of stuck in that mode, like you don't manage to get the big picture enough to have like the legitimacy to say, well, we already covered this in this dashboard or with this kind of analysis, or we already did that work that could help you have the right directions. And so, if you don't have that overall business understanding, business vision, so you manage to have the finance perspective, the marketing perspective, and connect them to the overarching business goals, like you have much more perspective to come into your stakeholders and challenge their request or reframe them so that you can build something that is not useful just for their specific needs right now, but useful for multiple people in the organization so that they build the same point of view on a specific business problem. And usually that's the problem with data teams, is that basically you have multiple people building very specific dashboards or very specific
Right.
analysis, and you don't take that overview. And so as soon as you manage to build that kind of bird's eye view on the business, so this is something we like to show that way. So basically, this is how we see it. Like, an analyst can have multiple perceptions. They can either have the bird's eye view, so they're able to have a kind of um, schematical vision of the business, so with multiple bricks that are connected together, and that lead to a specific outcome with multiple inputs. And usually the problem when you come into a new organization, or when you are very junior, is that you have this kind of perception. And so you have a hard time to understand what should be the outcome, what should I build, and how does it connect to what other stakeholder needs. And as soon as you have this vision, you are like, you made the first steps towards building a data product. Otherwise, you will build like small features or small links that will be deprecated very soon.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I might have some follow-up questions later on, but I want to keep you going. So
And
this is
maybe, Tanguy, if you want,
Yeah.
we can show the customer engagement score dashboard that we built for customer success team, where
Yeah.
basically we think about this dashboard as a tool for the customer success. So it allows them to have specific data to filter like a specific customer, click on it, and then have the data basically displaying reactively thanks to their action, and showing the first like a section with the key insights, the team information. Then we have automated recommendations. So we have a few KPIs, and based on the values of these KPIs, we display like sentences on basically what is happening. We basically just creating rules based on, if this KPI is below this threshold and this other above this threshold, then we're in this scenario. So we kind of creating scenarios to help stakeholders directly understand the data and get insights instantly. And so that's what we mean by building basically a product instead of just a dashboard. It's basically the user can have multiple inputs or actions to filter the data, for instance, and they can see more than just data, but actually insights directly. So that's kind of the mindset for this kind of dashboard. And I think
and
like design is also something super useful to have the
yeah.
things at the right place, so that it's readable, so that you understand the layers, the priorities, where is your eye attracted, for instance.
When we take this example, so I mean, maybe we start at the end. So how do you measure potentially, or maybe you do it differently? How do you make sure that that this in the end like provides the kind of value, let's say for customer success team? So what's your process there to say, hey, this all looks great, but I mean, it's like that people are actually
Yeah.
saying, okay, this is something. I mean, I always ask the obvious product market fit questions. So like, how disappointed would you be when I take this away from you? So I don't know what kind of what kind of approaches do you have to get this kind of feedback?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that we can simply monitor how many people are just seeing the dashboard on a daily
Right.
basis with the metrics from Tableau or any other tool, maybe. And then, well, we just have like, there is quantitative and then also qualitative. So this dashboard is used for company town halls when customer success managers talk about a customer story, for instance. They can back up their story with the actual data from the customer. So yeah, it's kind of a success milestone that we know this is actually used because the company sees it, and our stakeholders are actually using it publicly. So that's one way also to make sure.
Which is
And
one of the
finally,
best ways. So I think this
yeah,
is like really like the high star criteria, because like people commit themselves, so they show it. They say, okay, this is really helping us. So they go in front of other people with something that you build. I think you cannot get something better than this. No, it's
yeah,
amazing.
and also when something breaks, we get an instant message like, could you make it run again and fix it. So that's also a key indicator that tells us they're actually using it.
How did you? I mean, well, I don't want to. So we can also jump to something else, but I think it's so the nice thing is like it's very tangible and very, let's say, very practical. So when all this started, so how at which point did you got involved? Also, like how did you basically approach it when you were talking to the team? So was it something that you discovered when you were talking about something else, or was something they came up and say, look, we have this kind of problems, and you basically went into exploration to really see, okay, what kind of thing can help them?
Yeah, that's a great one. Actually, that was more of so how where did it come from? So basically, we were as a company refining our overall KPIs on how do we measure the business overall, and we had a kind of 4A's approach where we had like awareness, adoption, ACV, and the last one was amour du client, which is like love of the customer in French. And basically, that was the four pillars of the company strategy.
Yeah,
And so the CEO was coming with that approach with all the different executives, and it was pretty easy to measure like not easy, but at least more straightforward to measure awareness, ACV, so annual contract value, and adoption, company adoption of our product, customer adoption of our product, and the last one, which is love of the customer. How do you measure actually like if your customers love your product or not? That's a super complex topic, and usually people come straight with solutions like NPS, for example,
mm,
customer effort scores. And when we heard that as product analysts, we were, well, we never look at NPS dashboards because that measurement is like you cannot measure that super frequently, is not
yeah,
usually representative, like all your user base. You have multiple personas involved in the adoption of our product. So how do you make the difference between the administrator who purchased the product and the employees who actually use the product? And so we are here. Well, we know we have a lot of data points, and we know we never like try to build a kind of customer health score based on usage data. And basically, we came in and we said, I think we have like we think we have an alternative approach to the NPS, and we want to build something to really challenge the status quo, and not only build a measure, but also build an operational tool for the customer success team so that when they will start a discussion with their customers, they can come in and have already a super precise understanding of how did the last week went in terms of usage of the product, were the people active, what kind of product of feature they used, do we see a kind of trend over the past couple of months? So really build something that could trigger actions from the operational teams, not only something we'll monitor overall, because that's just like, well, we increased by X amount of percent the customer health score of our user base in that area of the world. Well, that sounds great, but how can we use that as well as a tool? And this is really like what made a difference for us in terms of convincing the leadership that we had a better solution. And that process, like, it took a while because we had to do multiple presentations, pitching our approach, and we were super excited about our approach. So in the end, that was also a kind of cool side project we wanted to push. And now what's crazy is that like customer success teams are actually showing these data points to their customers to help the administrator who wants to deploy licenses among
right.
his organization, so making his organization more secure, and using that tool also to help their customers, not only to retain them or expand them at some point. So yeah.
So it might be that at some point you even, let's say, what started as an internal tool might at some point might become even like a customer-facing tool. Let's say for enterprise kind of accounts to say to really understand how people deploy things. Mm.
Yeah,
That would be an amazing
exactly.
journey if this
Exactly.
is happening. Yeah,
Yeah. But the problem usually, and that's another like difference between like product features and data products. We don't have the same flexibility or I don't know, velocity to build and ship some things like that. Basically, we have all the data we would need. Like we need to actually show that kind of data in the product directly, but the process to work with like multiple teams, engineering, etc., and implement that into the product is much harder than
Oh yeah.
doing our own thing on the side. So yeah.
I mean, you can just pass it on, let's say, to normal product and so just support. But I think one thing definitely stands out, what you just mentioned. I think this makes it really interesting. And often, like, I think sometimes it's a missed opportunity. So you had the business strategy, what you just described, what was there, and you basically connected what you were doing to the business strategy and just said, okay, look, this is something how we can support. And I think this makes it so powerful because, like, I mean, it's at least like for every kind of stakeholder, it's super easy to understand, okay, why they're doing this. It's not something abstract. So it's really like, yeah, so we understand this. Maybe one question, how long did it took you to iterate with the let's say, first approach? So let's assume, okay, some things were already there, but at least like still you had to, let's say, build things. So what can people expect? So when they were trying, or what was your process to do this? So did you had different kind of, let's say, POCs that you were showing, or how did you approach that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
So that was a long process. Yeah, Manu, you can go.
as you, I think it yeah it took us a few months to
Mhm.
be honest, and we just started like with just brainstorming what is love of the client, then what we can measure, what we cannot measure today, what we want the definition to be, and so along the few months, yeah, we really iterated with the first version and kept this link with key stakeholders. So, for instance, the customer success manager and leader of the team, we had regular meetings with him to make sure that we're going into the right direction. We are not adding a feature that doesn't make sense, for instance. And actually, this happened, and we had to iterate a lot. And so, on top of this, as Tanguy said, we had to pitch our project to the company, to product managers, to the leadership, and yeah, basically have different presentations at each step. And yeah, we presented a few POC. Um, and yeah, once we had a solid basis and that our key stakeholders were aware of the project, then we invested more in fine tuning it, scaling the data, because initially it was just a Jupyter notebook that we had to refresh manually every week. So that was super painful. And then once we saw the value and that people told us, okay, this is valuable, we need a refresh, then we worked with data engineering to actually
Right.
build a scalable data pipeline, like working on DBT, for instance, um, and to fine tune also details on the dashboard, explaining what is this metric, etc. But we did not invest into these scalability aspects before having a clear sense of the value we delivered for stakeholders. So that was
So
basically the yeah.
no, I think this is great. Also, like the notebook part is great, but this might be something for a different conversation to really see because, like, at least we now see a little bit more movement that people have platforms where you can go from notebook into production system much easier, which I think is super interesting because, like, most of the stuff, as you just described, usually origin in some kind of notebook or let's say similar kind of environment. But I wanted to ask something different. So what brought you to the point to basically go on this or go after this? So, I mean, like, you could also just have said, okay, companies going there, they implement NPS score, so you just implement NPS score and go for it. So, what caused you to say, I mean, it's also like often like, I mean, it's, I would not say it's a big risk. It depends a little bit on the company, but it's definitely, let's say, it's some kind of risk to put yourself out there and say, look, we would like to approach it a little bit differently. So we would like to improve this. So what was like that? What was the driver that brought you to this to do it like this?
Yeah, so I think there were multiple motivations there. First, there was a big opportunity to bring product usage data, like
Right.
product, like giving access more easily to the sales team to product usage data. And we really spotted that opportunity very early on because like we were in the same office as like other customer success or sales team. And when we discussed with them, like well, it was super hard for them to, they could access some logs based on like a kind of server like
Hmm.
website where we give access to specific information about some customers, but it was like not aggregated at all, like it was all spread around, and so they were not using that information to retain or like build like deep discussion with their customers on how can you better use the product, what opportunity are you missing in your like current usage and how could you do better. And that was something we noticed, which was like a big difference between like the product organization, what we are building, the vision we had, and how we sell, like we sell it with the sales and customer success teams. We had like very different vision of or very different understanding of like how it should be used and how it is actually used. And so the sales team was coming in and say, well, we need that specific features because our customers told us that it was not working or we would need that. And the product team was building a lot of different things. It was not like there was not a common alignment on like what's happening in the product. And so by like we were already bringing a lot of data to the product organizations through a lot of different dashboards, through deep dive analysis, but the sales team was kind of not taking as much advantage, or we're not providing them with as much easy access to the data as we did for the product organization. So we also spotted that kind of opportunity, and that completely changed uh, the mindset or vision of like what's the truth in terms of product usage from the customers when we brought that data. So I think I was one of the thing where we are pretty sure that we were going to have a good impact and that we are going to align multiple departments or multiple important stakeholders together by building some kind of tools that involve bringing product usage data access to the sales team. And we also saw multiple tools growing in the industry, like product-led sales tools.
Right.
I don't remember like Pocus, for example, that were like
Hmm.
growing, and we saw, well, imagine we could provide that to the sales team. That would be amazing. And so we saw let's build something like that that would make sense for our team.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think this is a really good example. This is like why I was wanted to ask because like, I hope that when other people are listening to this, so they maybe are looking for similar kind of opportunities. And but as you already said, like I think what's definitely important is like that you already had this kind of conversations before, so that you already know, okay, there is this gap, and so this is definitely something that we might can apply. Um,
Yeah.
should we look at another example that you have? So
You mean in terms of data product or
yeah, let's say,
in
or
terms
what
of
asset, what
dashboard?
asset, yeah, what kind of assets, let's say, you provided, or what kind of jobs to be
Yeah.
done or use case.
Yeah. So maybe we can cover, I don't know, Manu, what you think, but kind of our approach to identify. So that's something we did not introduce in the beginning, but basically
Hmm.
in this like live, what we wanted to do and still want to do is that we believe that there are multiple jobs to be done as analysts or data people working for a growth team.
Right.
So on the one hand, we have how can we provide a common understanding of the business and align the product, marketing, and sales organization together to basically take the same course of action and have this a common like information basis. Then we have how can we help the team identify hidden revenue opportunities. Then there is the part which is more like research based. How can we do some kind of analysis which are proactive, where we will really try to connect product or
Hmm.
out of product behaviors with key behaviors such as activation, retention, expansion, and so all of that kind of things. And so it's about like, yeah, 10 jobs to be done that we believe are important. And so maybe we can deep dive on how do we help the teams to
Yeah.
identify hidden growth opportunities. So that could be an interesting point. I don't know, Manu, if you want to go over that.
Yeah, maybe we can talk a bit about the key artifact that we have, that is the customer journey. Um, so basically, we think that it's key for us to understand the overall business context and to have like a key artifact that aligns all stakeholders, because often discussions are just unclear because we're not sure we're talking about the same metric or same part of the product, or we don't even know if there are 2 or 3 steps in this part of the product, for instance. So yeah, just aligning the business with this key artifact that we built, that is the customer journey. So the
Mhm.
first step is basically to map the key steps. So users discover the product, they start with it, like just getting started. They need to activate, then convert, and then retain and expand. So that's basically the key steps. And so we also map on top of that who are the key like personas involved in this
Right.
journey. So for instance, for B2B products, there can be the buyer, the end users, the decision maker. So yeah, basically it's more complex than B2C. And then we map basically for each persona what is their journey, for instance, in the trial period, and then in the paid experience. Yeah, just having this artifact is great to share with stakeholders to just to be aligned on what are we talking about, what are the potential drop-offs that are important, where should we work, do we know if there is a problem in this area or this area, and at least we can have a clear discussion on that.
One question here. So, how do you approach that? I mean, is it something? I mean, sometimes product has this already because like they're working on it. Often they don't because like they often have a different kind of perspective. So, how did you approach that to build these maps? So, what I really like is that you break it down by this different kind of let's say audiences which are involved, which I rarely see, but you're totally right. This is extremely important. So, how do you approach that to that you can basically understand how these journeys looks like?
Yeah, so usually what we see, so it depends on how your growth organization is designed. So usually what we see is that either you have like more mature growth organizations where we have like a specific department attached to it, and so usually they have more a shared understanding of the journey, they have common artifacts, and so everyone is using what they have as a basis, as a working basis. But you also have the Tiger Teams mode where basically multiple people from different departments are working together on different parts of the journey and on specific projects. And so usually like people working on the website or people working on specific areas of the product, they are super focused on like the problems they are trying to solve like sprints by sprints. I'm not saying that they don't try to step back, but that's where as a data person where you have access to a lot of different sources of data, where you had the opportunity to work with different teams, different areas of the customer journey, where you can come in and actually have that kind of overview of the business and propose a common approach on seeing the different steps and really simplify. And so our approach for that was fortunately we had like super great partnerships with specific PMs and we have great cross-functional groups. And so we managed to have some kind of workshops or focus sessions or focus groups where we could start mapping together like what's the beginning of the journey, what's the end, what are the main steps in between, what do we believe is an important milestone, who are the people involved at each steps, etc. And the goal is to really simplify as much as possible. And once you everyone agrees on what's the beginning, what's the end, who is involved, what are the intermediary steps, and what how do we name each step, and what do we consider is the definition for each milestone, that's already a super big step forward because now you have a common language, and having that common language is like the first thing you should try to have, because otherwise you will do like tens analysis where basically you will miss the point because you are not speaking the same language of the marketing department and they will just reject any insight you propose to them. So that's kind of the approach where You need really need to find partners in the organization where you believe you can build a kind of common group together to go after these artifacts and then push to get them adopted by all the people.
And is it then, let's say, the outcome of it, is it like, I guess, okay, step one is what you just showed. So in the end, like you have a, let's say, good understanding how these different kind of journeys look like. Are there follow-up steps where you say, okay, we now provide some data insights around that? Or is this something which, I don't know, doesn't even provide enough value? Or it's like that, let's say, just mapping out the customer journey is already, how to say, it's the foundation that you need to do then other things.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the foundation, and then it's really like it's not a one shot project. Let's say it's like always evolving, and for the insights, it's super progressive. Like all the kind of boxes you can see here around the customer journey
Mhm.
are analysis that we prioritized over like months, and yeah, progressively we build this understanding of the customer journey for each step. We are going to deep dive on, for instance, activation. What are the leading indicators of conversion? Because the company is focused at this time on conversion rate. So we will prioritize that and we'll investigate the specific parts of the journey. And so at one point in time, we'll have an analysis with key insights and recommendations that maybe we'll revisit the next year and we'll re-update our knowledge of this part of the journey. So I think it's kind of, yeah, always evolving. But once we have done these key analysis once, we have all the structure and even the code to update them later on if we need. Um, and even for stakeholders, we build like KPIs definitions that they start, yeah, they are used to. For instance, activation rates. Now, okay, all PMs know what is activation rate, what is the definition we have in 2023. Then, if we communicate in 2024 about we found new insights, the product evolved, activation rate is now this because it's the indicator that is most correlated to conversion, then they know what we're talking about and it's much more efficient. So yeah, we kind of building these analysis, like first building them at least once and then kind of update them based on company priorities.
So I really love this overview. I mean, it's like, so you make it extremely visible for everyone, even like no one has idea about how data actually works, where you connect specific kind of things that you deliver. Um, how do you approach that? On which kind of area you're focusing? I mean, we touched a little bit on this when we were talking about let's say, the customer success, customer score. But let's say when you look at this, so it's like, is it like again that you talk a lot with the stakeholders and you really see, okay, we, let's say our bottleneck or our optimization point at the moment is there, and so we will provide, let's say, specific kind of assets to help business to, let's say, make things clearer. How do you approach that?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question because basically when you start mapping it, like you say, well, we have thousands of things to do and we don't know where to focus. And I
Right.
think this exercise is not only useful to map analysis opportunities you can have or how your data team can make itself like more useful to the organization or cover some kind of areas where no one is looking at. And that allowed us some also at some point like mapping every step and mapping some drop off or looking for a specific drop off and say, well, we never looked at that specific drop off. And so kind of like areas where people were finishing their trials and basically well they were just churning, and we noticed that we didn't provide any like way for the customers to go back to the product because it was broken at some point when like your trial period was ended, like your team was deleted. So even if you wanted to log back in after like your trial period, you lost all your access to your data, and that was
Mhm.
like a crazy thing happening in the product. And if we did not do that kind of efforts of mapping and trying to look at every drop off between each step, we would never have figured out that kind of like big opportunity, because in the end that's kind of reactivated trials that you could gain and convert later on. So that's an example, but how do we prioritize and how do we identify? I think that comes with like multiple things. So once you have this mapping and you are all aligned on it, the first thing we try to do is to understand on our side, are we able to track the drop off between each step? Do we have the right data? Do we have the right tracking? What does visiting the website means? What's the data definition for it? What is login to the product? How do we implement that from a data perspective? And
Hmm.
so once you have these definitions in terms of, okay, now I need to do the work, now need to compute these specific KPIs, you can actually compute some baseline. So this is like what we did here, and we try to like define the milestone, define the metric, and look at where we are compared to some benchmark and say, well, we are well below where we should be. We are not where we should be. And to understand very quickly, you could actually do some kind of investigation where you really focus on like, we see a big drop off between visit the website and signing up for trial. What's happening there? And so you can map the screens and use your like product tracking to go at every step and look at the drop off again. So that's a kind of fast way to get insights and to provide visibility to the organization and to really like put the people in motion and make them like do some stuff, like have some focus group on how can we solve that problem. And the other and last technique that we like to use is that when you look at each of the different steps, it forces you to ask yourself very detailed questions.
Hmm.
So, for example, when we think about the workspace creator, so typically someone who wants to purchase a SaaS product, they can have multiple use cases, they can have multiple motivations, they can have different experience with that kind of product. And so at the beginning, we were considering everyone to be the same. And then when we started to map, we understood, well, maybe the basic setup or maybe the try feature should not be similar for every workspace creator or every people who sign up. So how do we map these kind of questions and make it something we need to think about, and maybe we can help with the data. So it really forces you to be super explicit on the kind of questions of problems you want to solve, and it's a kind of stress testing with your team on whether you have a clear answer or not about that. And once you have that, it's much easier to know which areas you should deep dive. And as product analysts or like business analyst experts, we know what kind of analysis we can perform based on the data we collect and what's the maturity of the different models we have available, and then suggest, okay, as a team in the next 4 weeks or the next 2 months, we should really prioritize delivering 2 or 3 very specific artifacts that will help the company move forward on like what should we do there or what's missing. So
Yeah.
that's basically, I think, how we would approach that.
No, I think that's great. So my major takeaway is like that you always connect it to the business case, and I think this is like at least like this helps so much because like you can always pinpoint, and even like when you break it down. I mean, this is like the tricky thing. When you start to break it down, it creates more noise, more variance, and it makes it harder to understand. But when you always have the ability to just go back and say, look, this is where we're looking at. This is like the step. This is this kind of, let's say, ICP or the kind of audience we're looking at. And so this makes sense. As a final question for both of you, and I'm not, I don't know how easy it is to answer. So you said, okay, so you have some kind of maturity within your organization. But I don't think that maturity is the only thing that is required to start out with this. So let's assume both of you, you would come into an organization that has not this data maturity. And so so this can be different kind of business. It can be big enterprise, it can be a startup or whatever, but the factor is really like data maturity. Let's say very minimal data setup, not really established. So what would be the first steps to, let's say, to establish your work and then to move forward? Also like as a blueprint for someone else who thinks, okay, where should get started?
Yeah,
Whoever
that's a
likes.
big one. No, but I mean, I think it all comes down. So your value as an analyst, and I think in our perspective in how much do you understand the business, how much do you have the big picture, and how much do you know what's available for you to bring value. What are the tools, what is the available data, and what does the business need, and also how is the business run, what is the revenue formula, what are the inputs of the revenue formula, who and which team is working on what specific levers of growth, and how do you like each of their requests is connected to these different levers, and how can you map, like really go down layers by layers and see like as someone working in data, I can empower that specific team, which is which has a big impact on that specific lever, and that will basically have like a business outcome in the end.
Mm.
So I think it's again connected to kind of building that bird's eye view that we discussed at the beginning. So have a deep understanding of the customers, have a deep understanding of the product, the business, the revenue, and then really kind of have a kind of schematical or mapping of like a tree map of the different things, the different levers you can play or the different teams you can help. And once you
Yeah.
have that, it already provides a short roadmap for you to know I should invest in that specific use case, and how can I be the MVP on that specific use case? Well, I know these tools are very cheap and easy to set up, and I don't have strong dependencies on others. So I don't know, Manu, what you think about that, but that would be my approach.
Yeah, yeah, I'm aligned. Just to conclude on that, I think, yeah, there are different parts. Basically, understanding the business. Basically, it's about understanding what game you're playing, what is your environment, understanding what is the business, what data you have available and could potentially have. Also, relationships, like understand who is the decision maker, who is a great sponsor, who can help you like shed lights on your projects. And yeah, finally having this data product mindset, being super proactive as an analyst, and really yeah having this entrepreneurial mindset, trying to yeah solve problems for users basically, but internally. So that's a bit the yeah different parts we're
Perfect.
thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I definitely have the feeling that I'm cutting us off here. So I think we could have easily. So I know. I mean, you showed me more what you've done. So this is like there's like a lot more universe behind that what we just saw today. But I think it's super valuable as a start. So final one. So when people have questions, when they let's say want to ask you something, what's the best place to find you?
I think on
You
LinkedIn,
mean
LinkedIn probably.
Yeah.
ourselves? Yeah, on
Okay.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn, definitely.
Yeah,
Very good. I
Definitely.
shared your profiles already in the chats, and so like for everyone who's watching the recording, so you will find the profile links as well in the description. So thank you so much. As said, so it's yeah. I don't know how I should summarize it. So there were a lot of things even for myself to unpack because especially like the kind of structure that you're using, I think is extremely helpful to connect what you are doing to business and make it for business a lot better to, let's say, understand. And I love your, let's say, your motivation to just improve business impact and different kind of things. I think this is super valuable. So thank you for joining us. And
thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks a lot, you know,
Yeah,
also for asking us. That was super nice, and that was a very interesting format also for us. I think the discussion could have expanded a lot as well, but that was
oh yeah,
super cool to show some of the work we have done as well. So hopefully it's been helpful for the community, and we are also in the Eventgarde community. So feel free to
right.
reach out to us also on the community directly.
Yeah.
Happy to chat there.
That sounds great. Okay. Again, everyone who is watching right now, who is watching it later, thanks for staying, let's say, staying with us until here. And so, everyone, a great day. And until we have the next session, which for everyone who's watching it live will already be next week. So, we have the next one already coming next Tuesday, which will be quite close, at least like to the last part. So we will talk about product journey maps and how to approach that. So we stay in the kind of area, going a little bit more granular. All right. Thanks, and see you
Great.
in the next one.